Guys, college football is back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I am so excited. I am ready to rock and roll, and we are ready to just fly on with the season. The 2024 season is here. Week 0 is past us. We are now upon week 1 of the college football season. Big games happening this weekend, and we're going to cover 4 big ones this weekend, starting off our season here at Pigskin Frenzy, covering football games. I'm so excited about college football being back. Welcome to the new era of college football in 2024. Welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Podbean, listening on Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, and Facebook, just type in Pigskin Frenzy. Follow, like the pages there. You're going to get episode updates. You're going to get news and highlights from across college and NFL football. You're going to get trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question, as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Do not miss this. You can go to the Home and About Me page to learn more about who I am as your podcast host. You can go to the contact info down below and, write your name, question, anything there, and you can write your name and, just ask anything. I can answer it on the show or off the show. Our platforms page, all the platforms I just mentioned, you can go to the platforms page and click on which one's your favorite listening style for Pigskin Frenzy. There's also the affiliations page, which brings us to our proud partners at the Beard Club. Guys, if you want an amazing shave, there's a bunch of great products out there, and one of them I would recommend is the Beard Grooming Kit. I'm kind of growing a stubble again because my stubble grows quick, but I guarantee you, when I grow a beard and grow it back in the winter, most likely I will use Beard Club products. You're not going to miss it. Beard Grooming Kit comes with beard balm, beard oil, beard and face wash, boar bristle brush, comb, razor, you name it, all for the Beard Grooming Kit. Significant others and male counterparts, listen up. And college kids, you're going to want to listen to these exciting deals as well. Guys, it is back to school sale for the Beard Club. 25% off with the code BTS25. There's 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, body wash, loofahs, and more. Just go to my website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. There you will go to the affiliations page, click on the affiliations page, and once you do, click on the Beard Club logo, and you will take you to the Beard Club site. Go to my link tree. The link tree is at the description of this YouTube episode video down below, on my X bio, my Instagram bio, and as well as my Facebook bio on the Pigskin Frenzy pages. Click on the link tree, click on the link to the Beard Club, and it will take you to the Beard Club site. The Beard Club, proud partner of the Pigskin Frenzy podcast. Thank you for making grooming needs be met and facial hair needs be met as well. Beard Club, proud partner of Pigskin Frenzy. College football day today. We're rocking and rolling, ladies and gentlemen. We're here. And I'm so pumped. You probably think I'm not pumped right now by the way I'm reacting, but tell me, I'm bringing energy. I am so excited about this episode. I'm so excited about college football being back. Week 1, we're going to get to the preview and predictions later on, but we got to talk about the big week 0 game that happened. And I told you, as we preview and predicted last week's episode of Pigskin Frenzy with the preseason Q&A, and it was the Georgia Tech Florida State game in Dublin, Ireland, this past Saturday. And it was quite memorizing. Honestly, and as we cover it and talk about it now, I was not expecting. I was expecting it to be close, but I didn't expect what I saw, especially out of the Noles. Final score of this game, and y'all are ready for this. A shocker. You're gonna just tell me right off the season, and it's not football season, without Pigskin Frenzy being wrong, right? I was wrong. Week 0, I was wrong. Right off the gate, I predicted the unofficial first game of the season, and I lost it. Final score, Georgia Tech 24, Florida State 21. Georgia Tech 24, Florida State 21. Florida State upset Saturday against a solid Georgia Tech team. But here's what I You know what? Before I get to that, let's go over the stats and then we'll break down the game and then talk about the game. We're 5 minutes into the show. I'm excited, and we're going to break down this game already on this podcast. It's just exciting. It's exciting to be a college football fan, especially. Let's talk about the stats and then we'll go over, then break down the game. I've missed doing this. I've been waiting so long to do this. Haynes King, 11 for 16 with 146 yards, 15 carries with 54 yards. Zach Pryor, their running quarterback, had a 1-yard rushing touchdown. Jamal Haynes, 11 carries with 75 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions with 16 yards. Chad Alexander, 7 carries with 54 yards. Eric Singleton Jr., 2 receptions with 10 yards. With 19 yards, with 1 carry with 10 yards. Their other wide receiver, Malik Rutherford, 4 receptions with 66 yards, 1 carry with 9 yards. Chase Lane, 2 receptions with 31 yards. Avery Boyd, 1 reception with 14 yards. The defense needs some work. Not going to lie. The defense does need some work in the linebacker area for sure, but the D-line and secondary stepped up in big ways, and they were much improved from last season. Brent Key had Georgia Tech ready to play some football in Dublin this past Saturday. Let's go with Florida State stats, and then we're going to talk about the game and break down the game. DJ Uiagalelei, 19 for 27 with 193 yards, 6 carries with 7 yards. Lawrence Toafili, 8 carries with 32 yards and 1 touchdown, 3 receptions with 25 yards. We had Roydell Williams, transfer from Alabama, coming into effect and coming into a play here. 12 carries with 38 yards, a touchdown, 3 receptions with 31 yards. Jalen Lucas, 2 carries with 13 yards, 1 reception with 5 yards. Keziah Holmes, their wide receiver, 2 carries with their other running back, 2 carries with 8 yards. Ja'Kai Douglas, their wide receiver, 4 receptions with 55 yards. Malik Benson, transfer out of Alabama, 4 receptions with 39 yards. Kentron Portier, 1 reception with 15 yards. Jalen Brown, the transfer out of LSU, 2 receptions with 11 yards. Now, big thing here is the big story here. Defense was off all around. There was really not a lot of defense from Florida State. Offense showed in some strides, but it seemed like there was a lot missing from the Noles defense overall. Let's talk about the game. Let's recap it and give you my thoughts. We went over the stats. I said to everybody during the offseason, and you could go back and listen to my episodes. What did I say? Especially in the ACC conference standings, for sure. I said this back in June. I said this a while ago. Watch out for Georgia Tech. I've said this. I've said Georgia Tech could be a solid football team. Watch out for Georgia Tech. I kept saying it. Watch out for Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech could be a solid football team. I said that their running game was going to be good. I think Haynes King was going to deliver a good first kind of tune-up game, but then he will kind of, take some strides as well. He was going to play well. I think that the defense, and especially in the D-line, was going to be much improved. I said that the linebackers needed some work, and they did, but they can build. Secondary was much improved as well. I said that Georgia Tech was going to be an underrated team. Second full season under Brent Key as head coach. And let me go on and tell you something, man. Georgia Tech did not disappoint. They really didn't. They did not disappoint. Sorry, as I'm pulling up everything and pulling up stats. When you look at Georgia Tech, man, and how they played, this past Saturday against Florida State, they looked solid. Brent Key had a great game plan. Brent Key had a great game plan. That was run the football. He did some film, and he studied up on Florida State, and he hit their weakness points. And Florida State, or before we get to the Florida State, just to start off with Florida State, they lost a lot. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but Georgia Tech looked good. They looked like a team that was ready, poised, especially on the ground. Jamal Haynes ran the ball quite well. Haynes King with read options ran the ball quite well. They ran a basic offense. And by the way, also give credit to offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner. Buster Faulkner, big-time addition to that Georgia Tech football coaching staff and team. Buster Faulkner, their offensive offensive coordinator, called a great game. He ran some great play calls. He was mixing it up and running some basic packages for Georgia Tech on offense, and Florida State did not know what to do. It was they created some big plays. They isolated that defense perfect and created some big plays for the rambling wreck of Georgia Tech. So good on him and good on Coach Buster Faulkner for calling a good game in Dublin against Florida State. I watched the game start to finish. Georgia Tech looked poised. They looked ready, and they looked like they were coming to win that football game. I said all season that this team was going to be a underrated threat. Starting out, they proved that. I honestly glad that they proved me wrong. I said at the end of last week's episode, I said that Florida State was going to win this ball game 31-24. I also said that Georgia Tech is going to show everybody that they are a team to not be messed with. They're going to give it to them, and they gave it to them, but this time, actually, they won the game. They beat Florida State. They ran the clock out, kicked a field goal with Aiden Burr, the kicker, scored 24-21. They beat the Noles. Upset of Mike Norvell Seminoles in Dublin. Big time game there for Georgia Tech. Let's talk about, before we get Georgia Tech, watch out for them later on. They play Georgia State next weekend. I expect a win out of that one. And then Florida State moves on to Boston College in Labor Day. But let's talk about Florida State, and let's talk about what went wrong. Okay. First off, they lost everybody. And that's okay. You're going to have that. They lost Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Jakeem Bell. They lost Trey Benson. They lost Jordan Travis. They lost a lot of guys and a lot of dudes. Jared Verse lost a lot of dudes of that football team. Lost a lot of guys on defense for that football team to make that defense go. Lost a lot of guys on offense to make that offense go. But along came in, you still had Lawrence Toafili. He's there. You had Roydell Williams enter the portal and arrive from Alabama. You had Kentron Portier. Kentron Portier is still there. Ja'Kai Douglas still there. Malik Benson from Alabama can make an impact. And then along comes Clemson transfer and Oregon State transfer quarterback DJ Uiagalelei. The problem with DJ Uiagalelei is, and I said this in one of the keys last weekend, I said, the problem with him is he needs to find a way to step up and create big moments in games. Create the big moments and win those games and finally and try to make some big time plays. He looked like he was poised in some plays, but not every down. He looked like the short ball, just like it was at Clemson and Oregon State, was his strong suit. And a lot of areas when he threw a deep ball, it was to the wrong guy. They were covered, and it was overthrown or underthrown. He didn't make the right decisions. He wasn't he wasn't reading the defense well. He made two big late drives, fourth down conversions, with both of them being crossing routes, and we're right on the money with the throws. DJ Uiagalelei, I'm gonna give him credit on those two fourth down conversions. Those were great. But other than that, he didn't really splash out. He didn't really break out. A lot of people thought this was going to be a coming out party for DJ Uiagalelei. To me, it was a sort of the same things we saw at Clemson and Oregon State. And that's why they rotated him and Aiden Childs out with Jonathan Smith at Oregon State last season. I don't want that to be the problem here with Mike Norvell. I don't want him to rotate him and Brock Glenn out at FSU, but we need to try to find a way, because the running game was solid to a point, but Georgia Tech's defense caught on to that. They caught on to the running game. They caught on to what Lawrence Toafili was doing. They caught on to what Roydell Williams was doing. Those are some two good backs, but you can't just run the ball with those two the whole time and then throw short passes. It's going to get kind of old and one-dimensional. You're going to have to show some more a little bit, right? You're going to have to show a little bit more stride, mix it up a little bit on offense, and then do the work that way. DJ Uiagalelei had decent numbers, but it wasn't a big-time game. He needed to break out in this game. He needed to show why Florida State was still the team to beat in the ACC after winning the ACC championship last year. But now after Saturday, a lot of people are taking the field instead of the defending champion. They're taking the field in the ACC. A lot of them are pointing their direction at Georgia Tech after what they saw. They're pointing their direction at Miami. They're pointing their direction at Clemson, Louisville, everything. Florida, there's still some people who are rooting for Florida State and picking Florida State. Florida State's got Boston College coming up on Labor Day, but there's a lot to be desired, not just with DJ Uiagalelei. Let's talk about the defense. The defense was off. From the first drive, the opening drive of the game, the defense was non-existent almost, giving up big running plays, big gaps shown in the defense, like their defense was just non-existent and kind of young. It showed that they've lost a lot on their defensive end. So if you look at some of the plays that were being ran, they were pretty basic plays that Florida State could have stopped, but they didn't stop them. Buster Faulkner just called a good game plan and put up a good package together for them, and the defense just broke down. A lot of gaps were open, a lot of busted coverages, a lot of busted run defense, just a lot of gaps open, a lot of holes. It did not look like last year's Florida State team during the season. It's almost like they carried in a little bit of that same energy and vibe from the Orange Bowl coming into this game in Dublin against Georgia Tech. Was it bad like the Georgia game? Absolutely not. They were a lot better, obviously, but they carried a lot of that same energy of we should have gotten in instead of focusing on Georgia Tech. And I told y'all this last week and sorry for the long recap, but I mean, it's, we're filling up time here, but I said this last week about Florida State. I said, if you they need, their big mistake right now is to not focus on getting in, because that's all I heard was we should have gotten in. We should have gotten in. Florida State should have gotten in. That was last season. You have a shot to get in now. If the playoffs were today, you would be in. You're one of the 12. You'd be in. Florida State right now has an early season loss. Kind of puts a damper on it. Not too bad of a damper. They can still go in as a one-loss team or a two-loss team. But if they lose any more games, and they could with the defense and the sort of the predictable one offense that they had, they could end up dropping a few more games. Clemson and Miami could be one of those games, and even Notre Dame, if so. Florida State's a team that they can try to pick it up and turn it around, but they got to do it soon, and they got to do it really soon. So, final score of this game was Georgia Tech 24, Florida State 21. Georgia Tech with an upset, man. So watch out for the Yellow Jackets, man. Watch out for the Rambling Wreck of Georgia Tech. I said that this was going to be a tough team and an underrated team and a sleeper team, and they are showing why that they are a sleeper team. Big-time upset and big-time win for the Rambling Wreck of Georgia Tech and Brent Key. Florida State, backtrack a little bit, but I know that if they can just hang in there, adjust, they can do it right. Good Labor Day game coming up coming up Monday against Boston College on the 2nd of Labor Day. So big time game there. Georgia Tech 24, Florida State 21, and that was the recap of Week 0 in Dublin, Ireland. Big time college football coming up this weekend. We're excited. I'm excited. Let's talk about these games. Let's get into these games. Week 1, preview and predictions. It's time to preview and predict here on Pigskin Frenzy. And let's talk about these 4 games before we conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy. Big time game coming up now. Let's talk about it. First game that we're covering in Atlanta, 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific. ESPN, or I'm sorry, I think it's on ABC, if I'm not mistaken. Georgia versus Clemson in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Georgia, Clemson. Let's go with the keys first, and then I can break down some of it and just talk about it a little bit. Actually, let's talk about it a little bit, then I'll break it down and do the keys. Georgia coming in, number 1 ranked team. Right? Georgia's number 1. Clemson, I believe that Clemson is number number 14. Yeah, 14. 14 versus 1. In the polls, Georgia coming in white hot, mad that they didn't get in last year, but they had a good Orange Bowl win against Florida State. Clemson with a coming in after the season they had. K. Klubnik, will he be developed more? Georgia, the preseason national championship favorite. Are they going to show us anything against Clemson? What's going to happen against them now? Georgia opens up as a double-digit favorite against Clemson. No shock there. Georgia loaded on both sides of the football. Clemson coming in with a little bit of a hole in some areas, but not too bad. But they still got some talent on that team. They're going to try their absolute best to compete with Georgia. But let's just see what happens. Georgia, Clemson, in Atlanta. Georgia's keys are this. Number one, simple. These are simple keys here, ladies and gentlemen, for Georgia. Win the line of scrimmage. You got to win the line of scrimmage. I'm covering this game early in the morning. You got to win the line of scrimmage. Georgia's got to be physical. And if they show their physicality, like they've done in every game, they're going to win. So, and that's pretty simple. Georgia's a very physical football team, big football team up front. If they just assert their dominance up in the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, they'll most likely give them a good victory here in Atlanta. Number two, establish the run game with Trevor Etienne. Trevor Etienne is a solid running back. He is a transfer from Florida into Georgia. Give some more depth to that running back. Branson Robinson there. Roger Robinson is there also. A loaded running back room led by Trevor Etienne. Trevor Etienne coming in there with Carson Beck. Etienne could be established a great ground game for this, great ground game for this football team on offense. So establish the running game with Trevor Etienne. Number three, and this is pretty simple as well, let Carson Beck shine. Carson Beck is a preseason Heisman favorite in a lot of people's heads and a lot of people's votes and a lot of people's polls. Carson Beck is an important part of this football team. He's an important part of the SEC race as well. Carson Beck was dominant last season, and he showed that he was dominant. He's going to return for one more year to show that, hey, I want to win a national championship as a starting quarterback for the University of Georgia. And good for him, right? He's going to try to do that this Saturday, start his journey this Saturday against Clemson. If he plays like Carson Beck knows how he can play against, like he did against Clemson, Carson Beck could single-handedly, not only with the line of scrimmage and with Trevor Etienne, help just beat Clemson himself with the numbers he puts up usually. So Carson Beck, let him shine and let him play and let him beat him, and Georgia should be just fine. Clemson's keys to victory as well. Number one for Clemson, you got to be just as physical as Georgia. You got to be up front, and I'm talking about up front in the trenches, on the line of scrimmage, on both sides of the football. You got to be just as physical as Georgia. Be physical. Line of scrimmage, both. You got to be tough like them, and then you can win some matchups. If you win some matchups, Georgia could be on upset alert. We'll see. Number two, you got to slow down the playmakers on that football team. You got Trevor Etienne, Carson Beck. You got Dominic Lovett. You got Oscar Delp. You got Dylan Bell. You got to limit the playmakers of this Georgia football team. You got to limit those playmakers. If you do and can slow them down, there's a shot if you do some work on the other side of the football on offense that you could put Georgia on its heels a little bit. Just slow down and contain the playmakers of the Bulldogs. And number three, big one, big key here, not just for everything. Big key. K. Klubnik needs to have his best game today. Same thing kind of with Carson Beck, but Beck's already had big-time moments. K. Klubnik needs to have his best game that he's had as Clemson's starting quarterback. He needs to be developed even more. He needs to shine and put on close to a Heisman-level performance to beat this football team. He's got to be more developed, have better decision-making, and he's got to be flat-out solid as a quarterback at quarterbacking this offense into beating Georgia, a top-ranked Georgia team, and put them on its heels and give them a shocking loss in the first week. He's got to have his best game that he has had in his college football career, hands down. That's probably the number one key I should have started off with Clemson in general. Those are all the keys. Overall, Who do I have winning this football game? I think Clemson's going to be close in the first quarter. I think Clemson's going to show up in the first quarter and give it their all. I think Georgia's going to run away with it through second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. I think Georgia's going to beat Clemson. I think Georgia's going to win by a score probably of 31-17. Georgia 31, Clemson 17. I think Clemson, it could be a solid football team in the ACC. Don't get me wrong. That's not a hate or anything. It's not throwing shade. I just think Georgia's better. Point blank, I think Georgia's better. I think Georgia's a better football team. I think that Georgia's more physical up front. I think that they've got a better roster overall and more depth in certain areas. And I think they're going to put pressure on the defensively. They're going to put pressure on Cade Klubnik, and they're going to get a couple of stops, and that's what's going to kind of rout Clemson a little bit. So Georgia 31, Clemson 17. Georgia improves to 1-0, and Clemson falls to 0-1 to start the season in Atlanta. Next game up that I'm covering, Miami and Florida. SEC on ABC, the first SEC on ABC game. Miami and Florida in Gainesville in the Swamp at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Big time game here. Miami, number 19 in the nation, against unranked Florida. A lot of people are high on Florida. And this was one of the questions I got asked. Why are a lot of people high on Florida? I think they are credible. I think it's just opinionated, right? They're very high on Florida. But let's talk about the keys of this game, and let's talk about what kind of makes it the way it is right now. Number one key for Miami is to start off hot. They got an offense. Ladies and gentlemen, they got an offense with a loaded room of wide receivers and a solid transfer quarterback from Washington State in Cam Ward, and especially a solid run game with Damian Martinez. You have to start off hot against this Florida team, catch them off heels on defense, and score early and start off hot. And if you start off hot, there's a chance that you could probably end it and win it and get on with it, I guess. But number two, kind of piggybacking off that, establish the run game with Damian Martinez. He's a big part of your offense now. Mario Cristobal got him from the portal from Oregon State. Solid running back, underrated back. Feed him the ball. He can be a big part of your offense this coming up Saturday against the Gators. Number three, and this is a big one, Graham Mertz is a good quarterback. I still think that Mertz is a good quarterback, just on a roster that doesn't have enough depth. Graham Mertz, you got to limit Graham Mertz. Limit Graham Mertz into making big-time plays and put some little bit of pressure on him. And if you do that, Miami, you got a recipe for victory there. Big recipe for victory there if you can limit Graham Mertz and the throws and the decision-making that he can make. He's a pretty accurate decision-maker. He knows what to do. He's a pretty accurate decision-maker. You just have to limit him in certain areas. So limit Graham Mertz, and that would be a good way for a keys to victory here. Now, let's go with Florida's keys, and let's talk about a little bit of games some more before I predict the winner. Florida's keys. Number one, speaking of Graham Mertz, he has to shine. He has to have probably one of the best games he's had in his career. One of the best games he's had in his career. Just be accurate. Make your decisions crisp, timely, better decision makings, isolate that defense, make the plays happen, and score. Pretty much. That's pretty much what you got to do for Graham Mertz. Just shine. Just shine in this game. Number two, do not let Miami start off hot. So it's kind of piggybacking off of Miami's keys here, really. It's really just kind of piggybacking off their keys. Do not let Miami start off hot. If you're the defense, you got to put a little bit of pressure on this offense and contain and slow them down a little bit. Do not let them start off hot, because the way these playmakers are, and I've seen them during their fall camps, they can start off pretty hot, and I would watch out for that and limit that, and just kind of don't let it happen. If you don't let it happen and make them slow, that'd be good. Number three, big one, just kind of like what I said about Graham Mertz. Florida's defense, you got to limit Cam Ward in this offense. If you limit Cam Ward, break down the plays, break everything up, and cause chaos and blow everything up, you should be in this game. You should be in this game. Home field advantage should be in the game, and it should be a competitive game if you limit the offense and blow everything up for Miami. So those are the keys for both teams. I think that this offense is good for Miami. They got a loaded offense. Florida's defense, and I can understand why people are invested in Florida. Billy Napier's coming into this season on the hot seat. I can understand why they're invested for this game because of the game, because of at home. They're at home in Gainesville. And plus, when we talk about Miami being quote unquote back, it really is kind of hard to say until it actually happens. We all say that Miami's back, and then Miami doesn't really do a lot. It's almost like what Texas used to do. Texas with Sam Ehlinger said in the Sugar Bowl after beating Georgia in 2018, going into 2019, we're back. Started off the season highly ranked. LSU beat them, and then it just went downhill from there. For that reason, it's hard to say anything. But with Florida, it's hard to sit and say anything about Florida because they have a very tough schedule. In fact, they have probably the number one toughest schedule, not just in the SEC, but in college football. So, who do I have winning this football game? I think that it's going to be a competitive game. I really do. I think it's going to be tough at first. I think Florida's going to give a good game to Miami. However, I think Miami scores a touchdown late and ends it. I think Miami beats Florida on the road. Home game for Florida. Florida loses their opener. It's going to be a kind of a back and forth game. I think it's going to be 35-28. Miami 35, Florida 28. Miami defeats Florida in its opener and gives Billy Napier in Florida its first loss of the season. Miami 1-0, Florida 0-1, and Florida goes and plays Sanford next week. Miami, as far as I know, Miami, after Florida, plays Florida A&M the next week. So we will see what happens there. But Miami beats Florida. Miami beats Florida 35-28. Moving on. Two more games, and then we'll conclude today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. The primetime game at night, ABC, ESPN platforms, everything. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. Going to College Station. And Notre Dame's number 7. Texas A&M is ranked as well at number 20. 7 versus 20 in the AP Top 25 poll. Ranked matchup between both teams. Hostile environment, to say the least. This is up there for Notre Dame, just like when they went into Columbus a couple of years or seasons ago. This is just like that. I mean, this is a pretty tough environment for Notre Dame. Going into College Station with a talented team like that, Mike Elko, his debut game as A&M's head coach, even though he's been in A&M's A&M's stadium and he knows what it's about. This is his first game as A&M's head coach, not defensive coordinator, but head coach. Marcus Freeman going in there, trying to pull off a good win there on the road early on to add to his playoff journey there. Let's go with the keys here for Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Let's go with Notre Dame's keys. Number 1, to win this game, you got to establish the running game with Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love, a solid back, coming back for this football team. Him and Audric Estime last season were solid. He's going to take over a lot of the heavy load this year. Jeremiah Love, solid football player, solid running back for this team, and he can run the rock. Let him run the rock. I'm pretty sure A&M can get caught off guard with his running ability. So if you establish the run game consistently with Jeremiah Love, they can fall flat on their heels just a little bit. Number 2, Riley Leonard has a big bounce back game. Mike Elko knows Riley Leonard all too well because he coached him at Duke last year. Riley Leonard and Mike Elko meet again, but they're opposing each other now. Riley Leonard has a big bounce back game after having a good start of the season, but kind of back half of the season because of his ankle. And he's fully healthy. He's ready to rock and roll. He has a big bounce back game and puts up a great game and great numbers in this game to give Notre Dame a victory. And I think that's what you're going to have. Riley Leonard's going to have to come up big, especially in a hostile environment in College Station, Texas. So that's my key right there. Riley Leonard has a big bounce back game coming up this Saturday night. Number 3, and this is a big one Notre Dame's got to match A&M's physicality on the line of scrimmage. A&M's still a physical football team. On both sides of the football, they got that SEC physicality. Notre Dame's got to match that. They got to match the bulkiness and the physicality on that line of scrimmage. And if they do not, A&M's going to bully them out there. They're going to blow up plays, and on both sides of the ball, they're going to blow up their defense. They're going to blow up their offense, and it's not going to be pretty. Notre Dame's got to be very physical up front this coming up Saturday night against A&M. Texas A&M's keys. Let's talk about their keys to victory here. Number one, piggybacking off of number three for Notre Dame. Number one for A&M, you got to win the line of scrimmage battle, man. You got to win the line of scrimmage battle coming up, and you got to win the battle up front. I think that's pretty simple. Be more physical than they are, and you can isolate their defense and win the game. Number two, you slow down that running game from Jeremiah Love. If you slow it down and take it away, then number three comes easy as well. So 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand for these keys. Number two, slow down the run game. Number three, put pressure on Riley Leonard. It's that simple. Those are some simple keys there. Be more physical than they are, and slow down the run game and put pressure on their star quarterback. That's all you got to do. It's very simple. If you do those three, maybe A&M can come away with a big home victory and a big win against a top 10 opponent early on in the season. Notre Dame, number 7 in the top 10 rankings. Big win for them if they can pull it off. Big keys there for Texas A&M. Loaded Notre Dame team, a team from A&M that's still talented. There's some players that entered the portal. A lot of players went to A&M through the portal. They are talented. They still got talent. Mike Elko is a solid football coach who cares about his players. He cares about the team. He knows the pressure that is on him to try to make A&M a powerhouse program again. He knows the pressure. He knows all of it. Who do I have winning this football game? It's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be close. I think Riley Leonard's going to have a good game, but I think A&M's defense is going to come up with a couple of good stops. I think Connor Wingman's going to score a touchdown. I think A&M is going to beat Notre Dame. I really do. I believe that. I think Notre Dame gets them. I think Notre Dame beats I think A&M, Texas A&M beats Notre Dame by a score of 21-14. It's going to be a kind of a low-scoring game, but because it's going to be heavy on defense. I think A&M 21, Notre Dame 14, and beats them at home in a tough game, big-time game for Notre Dame. So Notre Dame A&M. Notre Dame 14, A&M 21. A&M goes to 1-0. 1-0, and Notre Dame falls to 0-1 to start the season off. So A&M 21, Notre Dame 14. Finally, last but not least, the Las Vegas game, Sunday night, primetime in Las Vegas, LSU, USC. We're covering that one, and that's all we're covering. 3 games on Saturday, 1 game Sunday night. So let's talk about this game. Let's break it down. USC coming in, Big Ten conference now. Big time opening matchup. USC looking to start off the season hot. Trying to show everybody that they are still a primetime contender in not just in the Big Ten, but just in college football in general. LSU has not won an opener since 2019. That's 5 years ago. They have not won an opener in 4 or 5 years. So this could be a big chance and big time thing to prove to everybody that they are going to win an opening game, and everyone's sleeping on the Tigers. Let's do it. USC, Notre Dame. USC ranked 23 in the polls. LSU ranked 13. So 23-13. LSU, the higher ranked team in this matchup. Let's talk about USC's keys to win this game. Number one, Miller Moss has to have a big game. He has to be almost, I wouldn't say be like Caleb Williams, but do what you did in the Holiday Bowl against Louisville. Do that. Like, put on a show, be a big-time quarterback, and be a big-time threat to LSU's defense. If you put on a big-time game, then USC has a shot at winning this football game. USC, Miller Moss, USC, for USC to win, Miller Moss has to be legit, run the offense, run it well, and have a big-time game. Number 2, pretty simple. USC shows up on defense. That's what you got to do. USC has to show up on defense, and they have to get it done that way as well. They got to be physical, and they got to show up on defense, which is going to be kind of tricky, especially with the defense they had last season. Can they show up on defense and make a couple of good stops? That's a big-time thing for USC. So let's see. Can they show up on defense? Number 3, you got to isolate LSU's defense and create big plays. You got the playmakers. You got Zachariah Branch. You got Deuce Robinson as well at receiver. You got the playmakers. You just got to use those playmakers and isolate that defense and create those big openings and big plays, kind of like what Georgia Tech did to Florida State, and score and win that way. Isolate their defense and create those big-time plays if you're USC. That's USC's keys to win. Let's talk about LSU's keys to win this game. Number 1, Garrett Nussmeier has to have a big game. He has to have a better game than he did against Wisconsin in the Reliant Quest Bowl last season to end last season. This is his full-time chance to shine. He started a few years back. He started last season in the bowl game. It's his time to shine. Full-time starter now. It's his time to shine, replacing Jaden Daniels. He has to have a big game and show why he's the perfect replacement for Jaden Daniels. He's got to show that really no one can replace Jaden Daniels, but he's got to show that he is the guy to carry this team this season and become a difference maker and have an elite offense again this season. So Garrett Nussmeier has to have a big game, sort of like Miller Moss. Number 2, same thing as USC. You got to show up on defense. That's the big thing. Show us what you got on defense. New defensive coordinator, Blake Baker, do a whole new defensive staff. Harold Perkins is back playing his old position that he was in his freshman season. Utilize Harold Perkins, the new number 7 for this team. Utilize Harold Perkins. You got to utilize him. You're a little thin on secondary, but make do with what you got on secondary. Make some big-time plays on defense. You got to show up and give USC a couple of stops to win this football game. Number 3, a lot of what we didn't see last season is a running game. You got to establish a running game, and a better running game at that, especially with the kind of the quarterback that we have this year. It's going to help if we establish a running game because we don't have a running quarterback, because LSU doesn't have a running quarterback, right? LSU needs to establish a running game and establish it well with Josh Williams, Caleb Jackson, and the rest of the running back pool. Big 3 keys there for LSU. They kind of don't have a running game, so they need a running game. Who do we have winning this football game here at Pigskin Frenzy? It's hard. It really is because of the defense. You really don't know. And I think the defense is the biggest questions for both in this football game. They had really bad defenses last year, and now they're playing each other, and it's like, ooh, we just got to see who's going to play and who's going to have a better defense. I think what's going to happen is this. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think at first, I think LSU finds a way to run away with it in the second half and gets the win. I think it's going to be LSU 38, USC 24. LSU 38, USC 24. LSU finds a way on defense to come up with a couple of good stops, something that we hadn't seen, or LSU as football spectators hadn't seen from LSU in a couple of seasons. They get a couple of good stops. LSU 38, USC 24. USC falls to 0-1. LSU starts the season off at 1-0, and LSU finds a way to get its first season opener win in the past 5 years. So 38-24. LSU defeats USC in the Las Vegas opener on Sunday night. What a great episode. That just about does it for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X, Instagram, and Facebook, just type in Pigskin Frenzy. Follow like the pages there. You're going to get episode updates. You're going to get news and highlights from across college and NFL football. You're going to get trivia questions on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football trivia question, as well as all things to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday. Go and have a great rest of your Tuesday afternoon. Get ready for some college football this weekend. We will be back Thursday for an NFL preseason Q&A episode, 2024 NFL preseason Q&A episode. This coming up Thursday, and as we get ready for the great weekend of college football and get ready for Labor Day weekend. Great episode coming up for NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy Thursday. You're not going to want to miss it on all platforms. Until Thursday for the Q&A preseason edition of NFL Pigskin Frenzy, I'm Joel Norris signing off. We will see you Thursday for that. For everybody out there, please and always stay the course.